The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
It's better than indoor plumbing. It's better than electricity. It's better than the thermos bottle. That's right. It's the 2017 Matt Talk Online Digital Fan Guide Division I Preview, simply calling it The Guide. Over 200 pages digitally delivered to you March 14th. Pre-sale. Pre-orders available now, matttalkonline.com/fanguide17. Listening to this show, you will get $5 off if you use the offer code PODCAST. That's PODCAST. Offer code when you buy it at matttalkonline.com/fanguide17. Over 200 pages of facts, stats, history. Every single wrestler competing in St. Louis, every single score all season long. History, 4-time All-Americans, 3-time national champions. Who's got the most All-Americans all time? Which coach has the most titles? How do they rank top 10? Everything in this guide, digitally delivered, optimized for your tablet and iPad, but it works just fine on your computer. And if you feel like going to Kinko's, you can print it out. It's going to be a lot of paper. But anyway, retailing at $19.99. You listen to this show, and any show on the Matt Talk Podcast Network with regularity, use the promo code, I'm going to say it really lightly now, podcast. Yep, use podcast. That way I know you're listening. You'll save $5. It is worth it. ESPN loves it. You've heard my sound bites on other shows about how much Adam Amin used this thing when he was the ESPN. I'm going to stop belaboring the point right now, and we'll get to our show. But matttalkonline.com/fanguide17, the guide. This thing, the most unbelievable Division I preview guide ever assembled, and it just keeps getting better every year. You'll want it for your fantasy contests. You'll want it for your knowledge bombs. You'll want it sitting there in the arena going, okay, hey, who's this guy? Boom, there it goes. Also got tweet your direct social media stuff right to it. It's an interactive guide. You'll be able to pop up a podcast that's related to who's going on and what's going on. You'll want to get this. matttalkonline.com/fanguide17, promo code podcast. Save yourself $5. You will not regret it.
It's time to go on the mat. The Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
Welcome to On the Mat. This is Jeff Bradley. We have our monthly special edition of the UNI Wrestling and PWC On the Mat. We're going to get started here shortly, but I want to introduce my first guest, Drew Foster, 184-pound varsity wrestler for University of Northern Iowa. His record right now is 20-3. I believe ranked 14th in the country, depending on what ranking you look at. So there's a lot of different rankings out there. Definitely top 10 to top 15 ranking. Redshirt sophomore from Burlington, Iowa. Drew, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're not skipping class, but in between classes, so I do appreciate you taking the time to check in here and having a great year so far. But we have to, before we can get into any wrestling questions, first-time guests always have to answer a couple questions by my kids. And my daughter Morgan always wants to know what your favorite color is.
My favorite color, I don't really have a favorite color, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose blue.
Okay, and then my son Jake, of course you know him, he wants to know what your favorite food is and what your favorite wrestling move is.
Favorite food, shout out to Happy Joe's Pizza, taco pizza.
Nicely done. That's a good pizza. It really is.
And then favorite wrestling move, I don't really know. I hit a single leg a lot, so probably a single leg.
Okay. So you grew up in Burlington, Iowa. We'll get to your high school career in a little bit, but down there on the river, growing up in Burlington, just tell us what that was like growing up in Burlington.
Well, I live about 10 minutes outside of Burlington, in between Burlington and Minneapolis. So, I wasn't really in town much. I was mostly just, hanging out with the family, my brother and stuff out in the country.
So really you had a Burlington address, but Minneapolis school district. Yeah.
Yep. But growing up, I guess my babysitter was in Burlington, a good family friend.
Right.
And so I kind of ran the streets with a couple of my buddies, and it was good times.
Yeah, I always looked at Burlington kind of like Fort Dodge, about 30,000, know. Nice little town, but there's some rough edges too, if you get on the wrong part of town, but nice little town. And then Mediapolis, so you probably spent a lot of time there too. I know you're out in the country, but...
Yeah, I have my friends from Burlington, but mostly I just hung out with my school friends who all, for the most part, lived within Mediapolis or close to. So, yeah, we just hung out and stuff.
So let's get into a little bit of the wrestling now. What age did you start wrestling?
I started in kindergarten at Burlington.
So like a kids club, or was it just...
Yeah, it's a kids club, Future Greyhounds.
Okay.
Coach was Bob Insminger. Good guy.
Would that be any relation to Todd Insminger? Do you know him? He was a heavyweight back in the early 80s.
I'm not sure.
It's got to be. That's not a very common name, but
yeah.
I knew him in college. He was, I think he got second to Krieger from Mason City one year. I mean, he's a real good heavyweight, real agile and strong. But he was from Burlington, so when I heard that name.
Probably isn't.
So you started in kindergarten. Did you have early success, or was it just kind of like a fun activity to do?
Well, I won like 3 Super Pee Wee titles right away. So
where were Super Pee Wees at that time?
That's up in Waterloo.
So still up here at Young Arena?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. It might have been like one time it was somewhere else or something like that, but it might have been at like Wartburg College one year.
And I know Super Pee Wees, I think, coming up next month. And I think it's kindergarten, first and second, I think, if I can remember right.
Yeah.
And I've watched that a couple times, and to be honest with you, I don't really care for it that much because it's either, kids are just going crazy because they won, and half time they don't know what they're doing, and the other half are crying. So what was kind of your take, or can you even remember that far back?
I remember I won a lot, so I didn't really do much crying, but I did cry one time in a match, and my dad got pretty mad at me for that. Just kind of yelled at me and said, "You're not going to do that again." Since then, I never really cried after a match, threw a fit.
So you talked a little bit about Coach Insminger. And I'm talking more in your formative years, so let's say grade school, junior high. Who are some other influences on you? And it doesn't necessarily have to be wrestling coaches; could be anybody.
Well, my dad was always an influence, just being there kind of for me. He didn't really push me in a way was on my ass the whole time. It was more like he's like, "All right, these are your coaches. I'm gonna let them do their job, but I'm gonna be here for you. I'm gonna encourage you, and I'll try to give you some pointers, but I don't know how much I like those."
Did he wrestle?
Yeah, he wrestled in high school. He was a state qualifier his senior year, I believe. But yeah, he went to Burlington.
Okay.
But yeah. Other than that, I had, Coach Timmerman, Sean Timmerman was my junior high coach. Mark Swafford was after Bob Insminger was my youth coaches, and then Dan Cummings, Hall of Fame coach now, was in high school, and Jason Payne he wrestled here. He's a big influence on me, just getting the mindset right where I shoot a lot, and just the way I wrestle.
So then now let's move up into high school, and we'll talk wrestling in a little bit here, but I did know that you were a 4-sport letterman, and if I've got the sports right, obviously it's wrestling, it's football. Was it baseball and soccer?
Track and soccer.
Track and soccer. Talk a little bit about, that reminds me of when I was in high school. I went football, wrestling, track. That's what you did. You just went around the calendar, and you had a fall sport and a winter sport and a spring sport. And you either played baseball in the summer, maybe you worked. But kind of your high school experience with playing 4 sports.
Well, I really love football, and that was my aspirations. Growing up, I always to play football. I wanted to play football in college and stuff, but I just never really got the size. But those are some of the the best memories I have, just playing football. And then I went out for track for a year. There's a story behind that. I won't get into details with that. It was kind of forced upon me.
Okay.
And then soccer, we didn't have soccer until my senior year, and there wasn't a lot of numbers, and it was just something I wanted to do, and kind of in a way make it popular, just because in Mediapolis I was one of just the bigger names, I guess, that people looked at. And so when they see like me playing soccer, they're like, oh, this is actually like, because a lot of people just don't look at soccer as a cool thing to do.
Looked at like as an option. Right?
Yeah, and so when they see that, I mean, it might encourage some people that aren't doing anything to go out and try it.
So did Minneapolis have track, obviously, in the spring, soccer in the spring too?
Yeah, they were at the same time.
How'd you run practices then?
I did soccer track junior year and soccer senior year. I did not do track senior year. I only did track junior year.
Okay. So a school that size, and I've been talking about this for a long time, especially the smaller communities, I think kids have to go out for multiple sports for the sports to be viable.
Yeah, I think, just when it comes to like just a small school compared to a big school, you see a lot more just well-rounded athletes at the smaller schools. So that's when you go around, that's what you're seeing kids doing other sports. Where you get to the like bigger schools, like a Des Moines school or something, you get more specialized kids. And I mean, I think a lot of coaches will look at a well-rounded athlete just because, I mean, they're more versatile.
Right. You're listening to 1650 The Fan. The show is On the Mat. This is Jeff Bradley, and my guest is Drew Foster. So, Drew, let's move into high school now, and I know you've had some pretty good success before you got to high school. Now you've qualified as a freshman, placed as a sophomore, placed as a junior, and then you got second your senior year. Kind of pick out one of those seasons, or maybe two of them. And what I'm looking for is, when did you know that you can kind of compete on that level? And it might have been your freshman year, and it just kept building from then.
Freshman year, I actually did not qualify for state. But I'd say my sophomore year, really I was always confident, but just because I had the younger success. But sophomore year, I was at a weight, I was wrestling a kid named Cody Krenz, I think he's a 4-time semifinalist.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he turned out to be, from Wise and Muscatine. And I wrestled him right before Christmas break, sophomore year. And I beat him 8-0 or something, it's like a butt kicking. I'm just like, yeah, that's right. I'm here with these guys.
Yeah.
And then just from there, my confidence kind of kicked off, and I ended up getting third that year. And then I beat Krenz for third place.
Okay.
So I beat him before he beat me 4 times.
So it wasn't fluky. You knew you belonged, and it just mattered getting the job done, especially that sophomore year. So then you place again as a junior. I would think, especially junior, senior year, you're gunning for a title. I mean, your goal is to win a state championship.
Yep. So it's just a lot of determination because, junior year, I ended up getting 7th place, and I didn't feel like I felt so much I was so much better than a 7th place finish. I was disappointed in myself to get 7th place, and so it really fueled my fire for senior year.
So then senior year had a great year, really on a great team. You were among 3 other guys that ended up going Division I. Adam Drain, Stephen Holloway went to Iowa, and Cole Erickson went to Iowa. So talk a little bit about those guys and kind of the atmosphere in that wrestling room.
I mean, it was a competitive atmosphere at practice. You get guys just scrapping it out, and you get some tears some days. Just you'll take your bad days, but we're getting better every day. And it was just good to know that, the guy next to you is working just as hard to get the same goals as you. And so it really drove us.
Because when I was at UNI, Mark Schwab was competing, and he's a good friend of mine, but I knew I was in the same room with greatness. Yeah. And I don't know if you can, you're old enough to reflect back on that. Those are some, including yourself, that's 4 really good wrestlers.
Yeah, it was a blessing, I guess, to be put there with those guys. And you're getting good workouts every single day, and guys that are pushing you, and you're pushing them. We had a coaching staff that did the same.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about generally your team. I know I don't think you won a title your senior year, then you graduated, and then they won one.
Yep.
But Minneapolis was on the map. Been on the map actually for a long time with Coach Cummings. Jason Payne, I think, is a real good young coach. But talk a little bit about your team and the coaches you had.
I'd say the team atmosphere was really good. I think there's a couple other guys that had potential to, if they wanted, they could have went D1. I have no doubt about that. But, they chose other routes. But just our team chemistry, everyone was close. And in the school, everyone knew who the wrestlers were. We all kind of stuck together. And I mean, when you're close with guys, when they're like your brothers, I feel like it's easier to succeed because you guys are. I mean, you're just tight and you're just pushing. It's like a family.
Just that common goal, right? That everybody's pulling the same, kind of rowing the boat the same direction. It's a lot of fun.
And yeah, our coaches were more so laid back. Like we knew when it was time to put in the work, but they were like more like relaxed, laid back coaches. So that was always nice.
You listen to 1650 The Fan on the mat. This is Jeff Bradley with Drew Foster. So, okay, now we've placed 3 times at state. You're coming up to graduation time. Obviously, it was probably before that. You're getting some letters from coaches. Was it solely, hey, I've narrowed it down, I'm going to wrestle somewhere, I just have to figure out where I want to go, or were you still kicking around another sport or two?
I was thinking about football for sure after, my junior year we got second in the state football, and then senior year we were undefeated, and then we took a loss like in the quarters or something like that. And so I had that empty feeling in me where I still want to play. But and then state senior year came around and I didn't get that title, and I think that weighed on me more than a football. And I'm like, I want to wrestle. And so I was pretty much made up my mind after that I wanted to wrestle. I mean, coaches have been talking to me.
And then was there a decision at like Division I, Division II, Division III?
I mean, my parents helped with the decision, I would say. My mom she actually wanted me to go to co-college. But I knew I wanted to go D1 and wrestle. I didn't want to settle for less, I guess, just as a personal standard for myself. And so, I mean, I looked at my 2 choices, honestly, were Northern Illinois and then Northern Iowa.
Okay, so now, hey, you're on campus. Let's talk a little bit about your redshirt year. And it always interests me about redshirt years because it's such a transition. It's not even a level change from high school to college. It's 6 level changes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Academically, it's a huge level change. So how did you – just talk about your transition from high school to college and any issues you had, or was it pretty smooth sailing?
I mean, I definitely had my issues. I think one of the biggest issues, like with school-wise, when you got all this time, like – you don't know what to do with it, and people, I mean, they don't understand that how much time you'll have, and it's just like managing your time, and once you figure that out, everything just starts clicking for school.
That's a good lesson to learn, because there's a lot of fifth-year seniors haven't learned that yet. That's a great lesson to learn your first year is time management.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the competition end of it, was it a shock? Probably a little bit of a shock to your body right away, just coming in a D1 room, right?
Yeah, I was definitely, I mean, I was feeling it everywhere. I mean, there was a couple times where I could hardly walk downstairs. And people would get mad when, I mean, I was freshman, we're getting on the elevators, going just a couple floors up, and they're like, why don't you guys just walk? You guys don't know.
So now let's move quickly ahead to your redshirt freshman year. Had a really good, I think a solid year last year. Ended in some disappointment. You beat the kid from Buffalo University in the dual meet. If I remember rather handily, that's what I remember in my head.
It was overtime, but like
okay.
I was manhandling it, or not manhandling, but like I was winning till like the end, and he tied it up pretty easily.
And then we've got that same exact matchup to go to national tournament, and we end up losing. So talk a little bit about that. I know it was disappointing, but how you turned that around to your success this year.
Just knowing I was so close, like it's like just tasting it, like tasting nationals, and that was one of my goals. And you come that close, it's just knowing that, like, I'm there, like, I should be at nationals watching the national tournament. The whole time I'm like, that should be me wrestling.
Right.
And
he had a good tournament, too, didn't he? Did he win a couple matches?
He upset the number 3 seed right away.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just seeing that, I mean, obviously I was hurt after the match, but just seeing the success that he's having, like, know that I'm right there. Like, I should be having that success. Really transitioning into this year, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it did, too, and let's talk a little bit about, I don't have a lot of time, about a minute left. You're setting yourself up great for the national tournament, the MAC conference. I want to talk about the Jack Deckow. I mean, you're a confident guy. Were you pretty sure you were going to beat him? Were you confident you were going to beat him?
I thought I was going to get the major, if not more. Just going into the match.
I mean, this is a 2-time All-American from Old Dominion, and it was early in the year. It was in the December, I believe, maybe late November. And it was a great match. You kind of put yourself out there. You said, hey, I'm a top 15 guy or 10 guy too. And you took him out. So it was just a great match. So real quickly, what are you working on right now to sharpen up for MACs and NCAAs?
I'm working on my conditioning, setups, finishing shots, just staying strong, staying in good position. Just not getting flustered. I'd say just staying calm. And, I think that's what it'll take to win a title.
Drew, I want to thank you again for taking your time out of your busy, busy day. And good luck next weekend at the MAC Conference and then the NCAAs. We'll be right back with On the Mat.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When all you want is sports, all you need is 1650 The Fan.
Welcome back to On the Mat. Jeff Bradley, my second guest, Brett Robbins, University of Northern Iowa assistant coach. Hey, Brett, I was just thinking on the way in, actually, this question popped in my head. It's your first year, not quite over yet. What's your impressions of full-time coach at Division I university?
It's something I think I've grown a lot this first year, and I'm really enjoying it, enjoying the process. I've been around UNI wrestling since I came here for school and been around, and you train full time as an athlete, and then when Doug asked me to stick around and be a club athlete, I was always around, and I was still helping guys training through the summer. So not a whole lot of change, but I definitely have more responsibilities now as far as doing paperwork things or communicating with people in administration, and I'm in charge of gear, so doing that, but just some new responsibilities, but I'm still in there every day, and we're still trying to put a quality product out there on the mat for UNI wrestling and just trying to get our guys to be the best they can be on and off the mat.
Well, I know a lot of coaches, and, time management's a huge thing, but it's always funny that it's a lot more than wrestling. It's a lot more than going in the 2 hours in the afternoon. It's the paperwork. It's the administration stuff. Do you agree with that? Did that throw you a curveball a little bit?
Yeah, definitely, because I know I used to come in, and when I was training, I'd come in, and I'd go change, and I'd go work out, and then I'd finish what I needed, go home, and then I'd come back in the afternoon, and it was about, maybe 6 hours of your day, 5-6 hours of your day, was dedicated strictly to training or less sometimes, but now when I come in, I check my email, I go through that, if I have to reply to anybody right away, and just a lot of feedback, and especially right now, doing some things for UNI Wrestling where I'm communicating with a lot of different people now. So, it is a lot more than just going into practice and, trying to get these guys better. It's a lot of other things too.
Right. So let's talk Panther Wrestling Club. We've got two guys competing right now. Let's talk about Blaze and Joey a little bit. Their past competitions last few months since we've caught up with you. What they've got on the horizon, and then I think we'll talk about just some general freestyle results.
Yeah, the PWC guys been kind of busy. They wrestled in the AC before the New Year, so they went out to New York, and we talked about that. Then they came back and were in town for about a month, and then they spent about, I think it was a week out at the training center for the national team camp, so being around the top 3 guys at all their weights and some other guys, so they were able to, get in there and learn new techniques, maybe tactics, watching film, doing all the things that the national team does. So it was a good environment for them to be around. And like I said, I think it was a week to 10 days they were out there. And then they came back for a few weeks, and then they just recently went out to the Dave Schultz International Memorial Tournament. And that attracts a lot of the good U.S. wrestlers. And they both wrestled out there, Laser at 61 kilograms. He ended up going 1 and 2 on the day. I don't think it's what he wanted. I know it's not, but he definitely has some things to work on, especially his nerves. He was pretty worked up, and you could see it in his matches versus just going out there and, taking it at a position at a time or, a match at a time, I guess, thinking it like that, where he just got really overwhelmed. So he's just got to focus back on that and his breathing and getting his control ties and positions where he's really good at and being pretty tactical in his matches. And I think we'll see a more improved Laser coming the U.S. Open. And then same with Blaze. Blaze went 3 and 2. He was in the top 6 at his weight, but he lost to 2 Americans and he beat 3 foreigners. So good to maybe feel some of that, the foreigner feel a little bit. But he was wrestling Felix and got taken down a couple times. And then on the edge of the mat, Felix was in on a score. And instead of maybe stepping out or turning down, he tried to throw him, and he put himself on his back and got pinned. So just an error in judgment there. Just give up the points versus trying to maybe get out of it or, try to hit a big move. And then he wrestled Burak again, who he wrestled at the AC, and he lost. And Burak made some adjustments to the way Blaze wrestled over under. He stayed out, and Blaze kept collar tying left side, and he kept 2-on-1 at him. So now Blaze has to, do a little film study and then make the right adjustment, getting back out on the mat, just because he kind of kept doing the same thing over and over. So just keep getting better in freestyle, keep getting experience, keep getting matches, and I think we'll see, improved wrestlers come the U.S. Open.
So now let's talk more about just the world stage for freestyle. Had a couple of huge tournaments. I call it the Jargon. I know you don't pronounce it quite like that, but that's how I say it. And then also the World Cup. So let's talk about the Jargon first, where obviously Schneider did great, and he's going to be the headliner of that thing.
Yeah, Eureka tournament's probably considered one of the toughest tournament in the world. It's in Krasnoyarsk, Russia, and it's just a tough tournament because there's a lot of Russians there and a lot of people from that Eastern Bloc. But the Americans, they send some guys over, a delegation over, and they wrestle. And Snyder ended up winning the tournament. He's the first U.S. wrestler to win it since Steve Mako did, I believe, in 2007 or 2008, maybe 2009. So it was years ago, but he wrestled a great tournament, and just funny thing, his bracket didn't have a Russian on his. He didn't have to wrestle a Russian on his side of the bracket till the final. So
it's funny how that happens in Russia.
Random draw, but he's setting an unbelievable pace wrestling NCAA and going to camp and being able to go overseas and wrestle and still doing a great job. And he's really fun to watch, and he's an incredible wrestler.
So we'll talk about the World Cup. Just got over, week, 10 days ago. Jordan Burroughs' first competition since the Olympics, I believe. And then we have to talk about David Taylor.
Yeah, the U.S. was able to – the World Cup was in Iran, so, maybe some controversy going on there with political stuff. But they originally weren't going to be allowed to go over, and got it worked out where they were able to send, the team over, and the U.S. wrestled really well. They had a really tough our quadrant was real tough with Russia, Azerbaijan, the United States, and off the top of my head, I'm losing it. But it was a pretty tough quad, and they came out of that winning. So they're able to wrestle Iran in the finals, and like you said, Burroughs is his first time back, and he went undefeated. And I thought he looked good. I mean, he's a phenomenal wrestler. I mean, he's adapted, and he keeps getting better and improving. And then David Taylor stepped in at 86 kilos, where he has an Olympic bronze medalist. That's the number one guy at his weight. But David Taylor came out, and he beat 2 Olympic champions and I believe another world medalist. So a pretty good tournament over the course of 2 days to beat those kind of guys, and for him maybe a confidence thing to know that he has the skills to compete with the best in the world. So that was. It was a lot of fun to watch him, especially being down in the match against Iran, that he was losing, and then, he's able to score some defensive scores, and then he gets to the guy, and he puts him on his back and pins him, and that's the Olympic champion from Iran. So a pretty big deal. A lot of emotions going there, but it was fun to watch.
And that's obviously what Blaze and Joey are working toward to get on that stage. Getting back to David Taylor, that guy, he should be him and Burroughs should be the face of freestyle wrestling. Number one, because Taylor wrestles a style that anybody can get behind. It's fun to watch. You don't have to understand the rules. It's just fun to watch. And I still could never figure out how he could never beat Dake. So that just tells me Dake is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
just
that guy's
phenomenal.
great too.
So let's move on to, we've got the conference coming up. We're going to talk some college wrestling here in this second segment. But I do want to get this out here. We've got a UNI reunion coming up the same weekend as the conference, so it's March 3rd and 4th. You want to talk a little bit about that, and if people want to get involved?
Yeah, so we're hosting the MAC Championships, and it's something that we won't. It's about once every 9 years for us. So it's the actual conference is March 4th and 5th. It's going to be in the McLeod Center. Obviously, we're going to have the MAC teams there, but it's going to be a good event. Tickets are on sale, and you can find it online. UNIPanthers.com or UNI Tix, and get there or just show up and buy some at the door. And then I know that same weekend, March 3rd through 5th, we're going to put on a reunion weekend, and we're kind of asking the alumni, friends of UNI Wrestling supporters, if they want to come be a part of it. And Friday they're going to have an informal gathering that night, but some of UNI's old coaches, CP is going to be in town, and they're going to be having a thing at the Landmark, 107 Main Street from 5 to close, and just being able to get together and talk and, share some good camaraderie with each other and the old memories and maybe what's coming forward for UNI Wrestling and what they can do to help, make sure UNI Wrestling is the best position it can be in. And then Saturday, wrestling starts that morning, and then we're going to have after the sessions, we're going to have a dinner in the Commons Ballroom, and it's going to be a catered meal, so it's going to be pretty nice. And they did this for the 75 team when they got inducted, and it ended up being a really good event. But we're looking forward to, having as many people back for that as we can. But it's a catered meal, so if you need to sign up, it's all the information's on the Alumni Association page, and you can go check it out, and it'll show you the details of what's going to happen. But CP, Briggs, the current UNI coaching staff's going to be there. Sandy Stevens, Jim Miller, a lot of old timers, a lot of All-Americans, national champions coming back for it. So it's something we look forward to, and being able to have a good weekend of wrestling, and then have all those guys back on campus.
And then at a bare minimum, the guys that are going to speak are going to be Chuck Patton, Don Briggs, Jim Miller, Doug Schwab.
Yep.
So that's worth the price of admission right there.
Those guys get you fired up.
They will get you fired up. That's going to be fun. See a lot of friendly faces and some good old alumni. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about UNI's dual meets that we're going to concentrate basically after Christmas.
Yep.
What we've been hitting on. And let's start with the Southern Scuffle and how we did out there.
We gave our guys a break over Christmas and came back, and they wrestled really well at the Scuffle. We finished 5th as a team, and we had some guys kind of break out and put themselves on the national scene that tournament. Josh Albert got 3rd, Max Thompson got 3rd, Bryce Steyer got 3rd. Drew Foster was in the semifinal match, dinged his head a little bit, so he got pulled. He ended up defaulting to 6th, but I think if he was healthy, he's in the thick of it, moving up that ladder. And then Taylor Lujan also placed for us. And then we had a couple other guys that were in the round of 12 that Jay Schwarm at 125, and then Isaiah Patton at 165. So getting some depth on our team, and guys, they wrestled really well. Still attacking when we were winning, scoring points, and kind of winning those gritty, tough matches that maybe in the past we haven't won. But those guys, they really sucked it up, and they wrestled really well.
And then moving on to Northern Illinois, won that 23-17. Any highlights out of that match?
One match, or maybe a couple, thinking back to it, but Max Thompson wrestled Steve Blease, and he's, they were ranked pretty close at the time, and, we kind of expected Max to just go out and win, and he did. But it was a good win. The kid real long. He doesn't do a whole lot, but he keeps matches close, and Max was able to find a way to win, and he seemed to have done that all year. And another match that I thought was pretty important was at 174, Lujan got a fall and kind of got us going, and hit a big headlock against Trace Engelkiss. And that he's come on. He's in the rankings right now nationally, and he's come along this year. So it was a good win, and it's fun to see Taylor hit those headlocks out there.
You're listening to 1650 The Fan. The show is on the mat. This is Jeff Bradley, my guest, assistant coach at UNI, Brett Robbins. So, Brett, let's pick up some more results here. Went from Northern Illinois to wrestle Central Michigan. Real scrappy team. I think they're about a 14th ranked in the country. Beat them in a duel, 17-16. Any highlights on that dual meet?
Yeah, the match was actually tied at the end of it, and it came down to a certain criteria, and it came down to points scored, so points that we've scored in the match versus them. And so that kind of shows you that everything's important, and to keep trying to improve and keep winning and keep scoring as many points as you can in those matches. But Drew Foster had a big win. He wrestled a kid he lost to last year, Jordan Ellingwood, and they were kind of ranked close. He was in front of Drew at the time, and it was 1-1 close match, and Drew just kept kind of chipping away, and then at the end he finally got a score. So got a takedown with about, I think it was 8 seconds left, wrote him out, and he ends up winning the match 3-1, and pretty much got everyone excited and fired up for that rest of the meet. So it was pretty exciting for him to get that win.
Then we take a trip down to Iowa State, duel them, win that 20-12. highlight a match or two on that dual meet victory over Iowa State.
Get in-state rivalry, obviously, and so it's a good win for us, and maybe for where we think our program is compared to maybe other people. But Josh Albury wrestled Earl Hall, and a guy that beat him 3 times last year, and Josh was able to turn it around. He got out to a 4-1 lead early, and Hall, being a competitor and being a crafty guy, he came back and got himself back in the match, and it sent to overtime, and Josh got a takedown in OT. So that was, it was a big win for him. And Schwarm beat a national qualifier at 125, Kyle Larson, who came in the lineup, and Schwarm, he was a hammer on top, and he's continued to bend one all year for us. So, those are some highlights, some big matches I thought that really helped set the tone for what we were trying to do and where we're trying to go.
And then we rattle off 3 more dual meets right after the Iowa State, Eastern Michigan, Ohio, Kent State. Get back home, Super Bowl Sunday, wrestle Oklahoma, and end up lose 27-13. But did you have any highlights from that dual meet?
Yeah, I think a big win in that dual meet was for Jacob Holschlag. He started out the year for us at 184, and he's moved up to 197, and he's filled in real nice for us since Bartell went down, and he was able to he wrestled a nationally ranked guy, Johnson, and he beat him and got on top and was able to get a turn. So that really, kind of got everybody fired up, but it was a little too late for us because meet just didn't go the way we wanted until that second half where guys kind of came out and we rattled off some wins. But it was a big win for him, and it's put him on the national scene now.
And then rebounded, took out Buffalo 22-16, which sets up a huge dual meet, the last one of the year for the dual meet part of the conference championship. Wrestle Missouri and take them out 25-10, and Missouri is a real good team. I got a couple things to say first, a couple questions for you, Brett. First of all, did you see it coming? Because it was a kind of a beatdown, and I don't think we'd been on top of that. Well, we'd won that duel about 4 years ago.
Yep.
Do you think that's a springboard into the conference tournament?
I mean, you use it as momentum, but you know that you have to do it again, I think, and not get over excited or maybe having so much joy and happiness, but it was a good win for our team. We ended up drawing that meet, and we started at heavyweight, and then Bartell kind of came out of retirement for us and wrestled, and he started us off right. He wrestled Meyer, and he won a close match. So he was able to kind of get it going, and then started at 25. Schwarm got a win over McGee. Albert wrestled Ernesti, got a win. Hodges wrestled a real tough guy, and then Max goes out and beats Mays, who's nationally ranked in front of him, number 2. So
huge win.
Peyton Moore wrestles a tough guy, loses. Steyer wrestles Lewis, gets a pin. Lujan wins. Foster wins. So Holschlag loses to Cox, which is one of the best guys in the world. But just know that these guys got to do it again. I think it definitely gives you momentum. But, things aren't done yet. So we just have to keep building for a MAC championship.
And we will talk about the MAC championships in the next segment on the mat.
Log on and listen online at 1650thefan.com, the online home of 1650 The Fan.
Welcome back to On the Mat. This is Jeff Bradley. My guest today in the second segment, assistant wrestling coach, University of Northern Iowa, Brett Robbins. Hey, Brett, we're going to go full 100% MAC conference tournament now. Number one, we're hosting the thing in a couple weeks, about a week and a half. Would love every wrestling fan in Northeast Iowa to come out and support you and I, trying to win the tournament title as well as the dual title. And it's going to be just some phenomenal wrestling. MAC conference is one of the 3 best conferences in the country for wrestling. I
think so. It's really stepped up, and as far as earning spots towards the national tournament, we have a good conference. Us, Missouri, Central Michigan, Old Dominion, Buffalo keeps getting better. So there's Ohio. There's a lot of good teams and quality teams in our conference.
So what we want to do in this segment, we're going to break down weight by weight. So we've got the 10 weights. Talk them through a little bit. We're probably going to be favored. We're going to pick you and I guys a lot, but we're going to talk about the other teams too and give people kind of a a little preview on what they can see here in about 10 days. So let's start right off at 125, and I have to tell you that the NCAA has a RPI just like the football RPI. So, guys, you get a number next to your name depending on quality wins, losses, strength of schedule, things like that. So we will tell you who we think are going to be seeded, but depending on the RPI, things could be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's go 125, just the MAC conference rankings. We have Dylan Peters, number 1. Shakur Laney from Ohio, real good wrestler, number 2. Another good wrestler at 125 is Brent Fleetwood. He's out of Central Michigan. And then number 4 is Eastern Michigan's Noah Gonzer. Not even in that mix right now is Barlow McGee, who's been a qualifier, I think, 2 years from Missouri.
He's around a 12 last year.
He was one win away from being All-American. So I'm assuming he's probably in there about number 5, but remember the RPI. What do you think is going to happen here at 125?
Well, I know I like our guy. He's 2-time All-American, and he kind of shines in that spotlight. So, I really like Dylan. He actually wrestled Barlow last weekend and lost in a 3-1 match, but, he's lost to him in the past and bounced back and made the right adjustments. So, I like our guy a lot, but there are some tough guys there. Shakur Laney's a tough wrestler from Ohio.
He's dangerous, too. Yeah.
And Fleetwood, he's able to, he's long and lanky. He gets on top of those legs, so it's just awareness things. And Gonzer from Eastern Michigan's kind of come on this year, and, he beat Barlow. He's beaten some other guys, and he's good on top, too. So,
there's some style conflicts there, too, but I'll go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Peters, Laney in the finals. That's what I'm going to say.
I'm not going to say anything. I'll just let you make predictions.
All right. So now let's move on up to 133. The MAC conference rankings are as follows. Josh Albert, Northern Iowa, number 1. Ernst from Missouri, number 2. Cameron Kelly, Ohio, number 3. And Lantry from Buffalo, number 4. Let's talk that bracket through a little bit.
So if you look at it like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, how they seed, 1 and 4 would be on the same side, 2 and 3. And, a matchup with Lantry is one that Albert lost in the dual meet. And whether it was he just kind of ran out of gas or maybe weight management, things like that. But I think being in that spotlight, I really like Albert. He's been solid for us all year. He's beaten some quality guys. And then on the other side of the bracket, maybe you have, you have Ernest and here we are. Oh, and Cam Kelly. And, he's beat both of those guys. So, they can duke it out. But I think Ernesti's come on from Missouri. He was a backup at the beginning of the year until about the Southern Scuffle, and he's beaten some really good guys too. So he's a real long, lanky guy. Kelly's kind of slick on his feet. Lantry's kind of they're the Buffalo Bulls, and he's kind of is a bull on the mat. Tries to bully you and hand fight hard. So Josh's gonna have to be ready to scrap and make the right adjustments for who he's gonna have to wrestle.
So I'm going to predict another UNI Ohio final. I'm going to go Cam Kelly, Josh Albert, 133. So we're going to move up to 141. MAC rankings have Ehrman from Missouri. He's a freshman, ranked first. Ohio Forder, number 2. Springer, Eastern Michigan, 3. And Mason Smith, number 4, Central Michigan. What's your take on that bracket?
Ironman started out the year at 33, and he's gone up, but he doesn't look like a small 41-pounder.
No.
Especially after that duel we saw him down there. I think he looks full-size guy. Four-door, not bad, has a good underhook score. Springer, great knee pull. Mason Smith, long, lanky guy, good on top. And then, we have our guy Jake Hodges who...
how's he fit in that mix?
He's wrestled some close matches with you. He didn't wrestle in the Ohio meet or the Eastern Michigan meet, but he wrestled Ironman, and he lost by decision. He wrestled Mason Smith and lost in overtime, so he's close, and he's a guy that really, really came on a couple years ago when he was in our lineup at 141, and he was a few seconds away from qualifying for the Nationals. He got taken down with about 2 seconds left, so just making sure you keep him sharp and keep building him for the weekend, and really look forward to getting him out there on the mat and seeing what he can do.
So let's move on to 149 pounds. We've got, this is MAC conference rankings. I'm not so sure this is going to be accurate for the seeding. They have Le'Veon Mays, Missouri, number 1. Justin Oliver, number 2. Max Thompson from Northern Iowa, number 3. and then Northern Illinois is number 4. Now, Max just beat Mays, so I don't know how they're going to figure that out. But we've got a loss to Oliver, I believe, right?
Yeah, he lost Oliver in the duel.
So how do you see that getting seeded and maybe playing out?
There's criterias, and they rank it a certain way if you beat each other. So, Mays beat Max, Max beat Mays, Mays beat Oliver, Mays beat Blease. We lost to Oliver, we beat Blease, Oliver lost to Blease. So it's, kind of how it'll shake out. I'm not really sure, but I know when it comes down to those things, they'll go into a round robin, then they'll go into national ranking. And I think depending on who has the highest national ranking, they'll probably go 1, whether or not who won last in the MAC. So I'm not really sure how it's going to shake out seeding wise.
I don't either. And it's there's about a whisker difference between all of them.
Yeah, but they all wrestle pretty close matches, but they're all quality opponents. And Max, I think that guy keeps getting better. From watching him and seeing him, his confidence is growing. He keeps getting better, and just make sure he's ready. I think I've said about every guy, but just making sure we're keeping guys sharp and not overtraining or not, doing too much, because a lot of the work's been done. So just making sure keep the guys sharp and just keep them ready to go and fired up for the MAC championship.
Okay, so at 149, I'm going to predict Mays from Missouri and Thompson from UNI in a rematch of the duel from last weekend. That's my prediction. Let's move up to 157. Missouri's got the number 1 ranked wrestler there, LaValle. Heffernan is number 2 from Central Michigan. Sparkman, Kent State, is 3. McWhirter from Northern Illinois is number 4. Let's talk that through a little bit, and then we'll obviously need to feed Peyton Moore in there and see what you're thinking his chances are and where he's going to fall.
Yeah, LaValle's done a really good job this year, a lot more offensive, and he's scoring a lot of bonus points in his matches. So you have to be ready to wrestle him. We wrestled him in the duel, and Peyton kept it to a decision, and maybe something he hasn't been able to do in some of those other MAC duels because he's gone to his back. And in this match, it was just like, you're not going to your back, man. It's just not going to happen. And he stayed very disciplined in his stance. He stayed disciplined throughout the whole match, and he kept it close as he could. So
it was a good battle.
It was.
He wrestled. He wrestled a pretty smart match and disciplined match.
Yeah, and then and Heffernan, Central Michigan guy, and he's been steady all year. He's got some good wins, and he does some things really well. Real good underhook score, and he keeps matches close, but he finds ways to win. So. He's 2, and then Sparkman's a guy that's been in and out of the rankings. He was ranked pretty high after the Cliff Keen tournament. He had some wins out there, and maybe had some losses, but he's back in the rankings. And Peyton wrestled him in the duel, and Peyton lost. But I think just like how he wrestled LaValle, stayed really disciplined. He's just gonna have to continue to do that throughout the whole tournament. And then McWhirter, they wrestled in the duel, and he got his head dinged, and he had to default out. So it really wasn't the match at all. It's about 20 seconds and hit his head. So, I would have liked to have seen him wrestle the whole match, but it didn't happen. And just make sure Peyton stays really disciplined and keep building him up here.
You're listening to On the Mat on 1650 The Fan. I'm Jeff Bradley, and Brett Robbins is my guest, talking about the matchups at the MAC Conference Championships here on the campus of University of Northern Iowa, first weekend of March. We're going to move into 165. Number 1 ranked from the MAC is Bryce Steyert, UNI. Number 2, Dan Lewis. Number 3, Selden Wright from Old Dominion. Number 4 is Devin Murray from Eastern Mich. What are you seeing there at 165?
I really like where Steyert's at. Physically, he's pretty much a full-blown 65-pounder now. When he first went up, you could tell he was a little bit smaller, but he's built his body up. He's continued to lift throughout the year. He's put the right food in, and he's a real strong kid. So I really like where he's at physically and then mentally too. He's a lot of confidence right now. He wrestled Lewis earlier in the year and lost, and then they wrestled in the duel, and Bryce was able to come out on top. So, I imagine those two are probably the front runners, but Selden Wright's not a bad guy either. He's ranked, and that's the first guy Steyert wrestled when he went up. And that was ranked, and Steyert won that match, but it was a while ago. So look forward to, in the seeding for that one, I don't know how it's going to go either. I know what it says on the MAC, but it could be different too. come seeding time.
Yeah, I'm going to predict Steyert, Lewis, rematch of that dual meet just a couple weeks ago. So moving up to 174, we have Taylor Lujan, number 1, number 2, Brucky from Central Mich, and Engelkis from Northern Illinois.
I like Lujan, stingy guy to score on, throw the kitchen sink at you. He's really crafty in a lot of positions, and he's done a good job at that weight and kind of made it his weight in the conference too with those guys. So, him probably going 1, and then Brucky and Engelkis wrestling for, to get that other spot on the championship side, and just keep him sharp and keep him ready to go.
I agree. Lujan in the finals, and Central Michigan, Northern Illinois can fight that out to see who gets to wrestle Lujan. Number 184, Drew Foster, is our guest about 20 minutes ago. He's number 1. Jack Deckow, 2-time All-American from Old Dominion, is number 2. And Jordan Ellingwood from Central Michigan is number 3. That's a good weight. No,
it's a tough weight. And Foster finished the duels undefeated, MAC duels undefeated, and I imagine he's going to go 1. And Deckow, he's had a good year. He's been solid. He beat Miles Martin, national champion last year, so in the national rankings he's higher. And then Ellingwood's, a tough, stingy opponent too. So Foster just has to be ready to go take it because those guys they're quality opponents.
Predicting Drew Foster, you and I, and Jack Deckow from Old Dominion in the final. Let's move up to 197. Jaden Cox from Missouri is number 1. Severn, Central Michigan, number 2. And Kevin Beasley, number 3. And I'm going to throw in number 4, Sean Scott, who I believe was an All-American last year at 197. Or was he round to 12? Okay. That is a good weight. Obviously, Jaden Cox is probably the man there, but that's a solid weight class.
No, it's a deep weight, and it should have spots up for grabs. But I like the guy we have there, Jacob Holschlag. He's really come on. He beat, he didn't wrestle Scott, but he beat the Buffalo kid who's ranked, and he beat Johnson from Oklahoma who's ranked. So I think just keep getting him to grow and fill out to 197, and then go steal a spot. But I expect him. I know we expect him to win and to perform like he's capable of.
Okay, I'm going to say Jaden Cox is in the finals, and you and I's Holschlag in the finals. He's going to steal a spot. He's going to the national tournament. He's too tough not to make that national tournament. So now let's bounce up to heavyweight. We have Parker from Ohio, JJ from Northern Iowa, and Austin Myers from Missouri. And I don't know how they're going to see that thing either, because I think everybody's beat everybody there.
Yeah. JJ wrestled Hutchison from Eastern Michigan, and he was ranked about 15, and when he beat him, was wrestling Parker and dinged up his knee, so we've held him out, but he's going to, he's ready to go, and he's going to wrestle at Max. He's been training, so as long as he holds up, I really like JJ and where he's at, and he was coming along. His confidence is real high, so just keep building him up.
Where's that Buffalo heavyweight in that mix?
Oh, Gunnings, he's been in all the rankings too. I mean, he's no slouch. Heavyweight's tough.
There's probably 4 or 5 spots there, so hopefully JJ can snag one of those. All right, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day today, and want to thank everybody for listening to On the Mat, and thanks for supporting amateur wrestling, greatest sport in the world. Good night.
You've been listening to On the Mat, the Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
This show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.